Former U.S. Vice President Al Gore's daughter, Karenna Gore, recently addressed more than 200 people during a rally against Dominion Energy's Atlantic Coast Pipeline, Mountain Valley Pipeline, and Buckingham County's proposed compressor station. Gore explained the group's objectives.
Demand that there not be a toxic compressor station in a historically African American community called Union Hill, to stand with them in saying we don't want dirty fossil fuel pipelines in this state, taking people's land, fouling people's water and air, but instead we want to stand for a vision of Virginia and our whole country that is about equity and justice and clean, renewable energy.
Appalachian Voices, the Sierra Club, along with a dozen other environmental groups, held a two-day event called Virginians for Justice Progress, Not Pipelines. The event started with a rally at Canoe Run Park Friday.
We need a lifeline to bring on precious rest. We need clean air and water to survive in this land, and not a compressor by no command.
We are in a really important time when we have a reckoning and also a beautiful increased awareness of our history that also goes to the painful and difficult history of slavery and, of course, of genocide and displacement of Native American peoples. And what we have the opportunity to do in a place like Buckingham County is to say this is sacred ground. These burial grounds of slaves, of formerly enslaved people, is important history and it's sacred place. And we can lift that up and embrace it as part of our national story in all of its truth, rather than just to let it be erased and destroyed.
Gore is the director of the Center of Earth Ethics.
I don't think that utility monopoly power is right. I don't think it's just. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's what our democracy needs, especially in a time of climate crisis, when we need to be making transitions and we need to be responding to people's health and well-being and concerns, and not somebody's balance sheet somewhere. So this is a real issue where Dominion has to decide where it's going to stand.
William Barber III is the son of Reverend Dr. William Barber, the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign. His son is the co-chair of the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign Ecological Justice Committee. He was among the leaders marching from the park across the Lee Bridge for another rally at Oregon Hill at Overlook.
Came here today to support, as the Poor People's Campaign and the Climate Reality Project, the local grassroots struggle of many of the community members of the Union Hill community, Buckingham community here, who are bringing attention to the devastating effects of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, and specifically the compressor station that's being sited in a traditionally black community in the form of Union Hill. The same devastation, the same issues we talk about here in Virginia are happening in our rural communities in North Carolina. So really I'm here because I have to be here. Have to be here to stand in solidarity, because this issue is not one that's only going to affect the locality in Virginia. It's going to affect us in North Carolina. It's going to affect us in the southeast region of the United States. It's going to affect us as a nation, and it's going to affect the world.
He says marching with the protesters was encouraging.
Deeply inspired by the solidarity, deeply inspired by the commitment that this community is showing in the face of overwhelming odds, deeply inspired by the strength. And I can tell you that the people here from Union Hill, the people here in Virginia, they're committed to this fight. They're committed to protecting their community and one another.
Barber says American society is facing climate, poverty, and a democracy crisis.
The issue here is sinister in the fact that it has impacted each one of those crises. When you talk about climate, natural gas is not a bridge fuel. It actually emits methane, which is a greenhouse gas 80 times more powerful than the CO2 that we are currently worried about.
According to Barber, Union Hill has a rich history.
It's the same community that used to be a haven, or rather the concentration of enslaved people, that then became a haven for newly freed men. has always historically been devalued. You know, populations of people of color have historically been devalued and historically been targeted for the ills and the placement of the degrading factors of our society.
Virginia delegate of the 11th District, Sam Rasool, was also among the protesters.
We're here today to be able to call out the fact that we've got these pipelines coming through in the middle of this environmental crisis, but at the same time, it's clear that there's environmental racism going on. This black community being railroaded. We need to make sure that we defend Union Hill, we push back against both the Mountain Valley and the Atlantic Coast pipelines. What's awesome is that this crowd looks like Virginia. It's not a white movement, it's not a black movement, it's an intersectional movement that's pushing for social, economic, and environmental justice. That is really what's most exciting about this movement.
Harrison Wallace is the Virginia director for the Chesapeake Climate Action Network.
This started off with, a few community members and Pastor Paul just trying to protect their neighborhood and their place of worship, and the legacy of the freedmen in Buckingham County, and landowners all across the state doing the same thing. And now this has become a national movement with Karenna Gore coming in and the entire Barber family. And it's just crazy to see and really impressive.
The Sierra Club's Billy Davies says the two-day event is a demonstration by the people to save their land.
It's a testament to the impacted residents from Bent Mountain to Union Hill, the work that they've been doing for years, tireless, thankless work in the face of great adversity with a very well-funded, politically powerful opponent.
We cannot allow a pipeline like this, which we know is going to have such devastating impact, to proceed unopposed.
So no Atlantic Coast pipeline. It's unneeded. It is actually an overbuild of frac gas infrastructure in order for some people to make money. It has nothing to do with energy needs, because we have right now a more availability and affordability of clean renewable energy, and so it's actually, as has been said, a ripoff.
The anti-pipelines protest continued in Leesburg on Saturday. In Richmond, Elaine Rackley for Breaking Through News.